What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, there's always been a speculation about whether or not he would run again in 2024. You got to remember back in 2020 when he won, and there are some that'll tell you that he didn't really win, but I don't buy into that. He was already 78 then. To put that into perspective, the former oldest man ever to become president was number 45, who was 70. And the oldest man ever to be president was Reagan. When he left office in 89, he was 77. A few weeks away from being 78. And many people considered him to already be showing signs of Alzheimer's, or at least mild dementia, when he left office. So Biden was coming into office already 78. And, I think it's pretty clear that he's not at the top of his game. Now he's 80. But he announced today in a video that he is indeed running in 2024 to save the soul of America. So let me see. He'll be 81 when he's renominated, which I think is going to happen, barring some unforeseen event, because they rigged the primaries, and I'll tell you why, or how they did it. You know, last few election cycles, the first contest was the Iowa caucus, then the New Hampshire primary, then the Nevada caucus, and then it was the South Carolina primary. And remember, last time Joe Biden did horribly until they got to the South Carolina primary, right? Because the South Carolina primary, 60% to two-thirds of the electorate is African Americans, and they voted 85, 90% for, him. So what they did this time was they pushed the South Carolina primary up to first. And I think it's followed by like the Georgia primary. So the electorate already is in a considerable advantage, will be a considerable advantage for President Biden. Plus, he's not going to have the competition he had last time. Remember how they rigged it? Remember Sanders was winning? And they kept trying to downplay all his victories. But what happened was, I think Sanders won in, he won in Iowa. I think he did. It might have been Buttigieg, but I think Sanders either won in Iowa or he did well. He won New Hampshire. He won Nevada. But what they did was they made Buttigieg and Nixon knows, a.k.a. Amy Klobuchar, drop out. They were the moderate vote, the moderate Democrats, or considered to be not moderate. And that allowed Biden to consolidate the moderate vote for himself, along with the future black vote, which is sort of sparse in those states. But Elizabeth Warren stayed in. Curiously, she stayed in. And that was because she was splitting the progressive vote with Sanders, which fucked him. So, his share of the vote was about the same, but Biden's expanded because the former Buttigieg and Klobuchar voters, they weren't going to vote for Sanders, so they had no choice but either to vote for Biden or to drop out, not vote. Most of them just switched over to Biden, and that's why he won. But now, to avoid all of that rigging, what they're going to do is just rig the process. But, I plan on either not voting at all, because I see the Democrats, Republicans as basically the same. There's some ideological differences, but they're both parties that screwed the common man, screwed over the middle class, don't have our best interests at heart, and only really care about what donors and lobbyists and corporate America, Wall Street whatever they want. But anyway, if there is a chance of me voting for anybody else, it might be Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and that's if he's on the Virginia ballot for either the primary and or the presidential election. Then I might vote for him. But other than that, I'm not voting. But he wants your vote for the soul of America. So that would mean that Biden would be president all the way, potentially, until he is 86 years old. And look, we're not talking about a guy that was spry mentally like Nixon or something. Nixon was mentally acute all the way till the end. But this is the fucked up thing. Nixon was acute all the way till the end, and then he just died of a stroke. So that's another risk factor with having a candidate that age. It could be a very mentally alert, appear to be healthy, but health risk factors go up for stuff. So I'm just saying, to have a president that age is very, very precarious, man. Jimmy Carter came out a couple of years ago. He's now 98, maybe in the last days of his life, under hospice care. But he said, I think when he was 95, he said there's no way in hell when he was 80 that he would have ran for president. And he said because at that age, and remember, this is a man that's lived to be almost 100 years of age. So he's biologically kind of aged a little slower than most people. But he said even at age 80, he don't think that he could have handled the rigors of the presidency. When he was in his 50s, he was able to handle the rigors of the presidency, the decision making. You have to be mentally flexible. And he just couldn't see himself at age 80 being able to handle the presidency and handle the job to the best of his ability. And I agree with that. We're risking a lot here, man. The next election, more than likely, is going to have an 81-year-old incumbent running against a former president who will be about 78 and who himself will be president until he's 82. I just don't think that's a good idea, me personally. Look, we have a minimum age requirement for president that's 35. I agree with Nikki Haley that there should be a maximum age requirement. It's not knocking seniors. There's nobody that loves older people more than me. You know how much I take up for people in the past, and want people to respect their accomplishments. But and it doesn't apply to everybody, because there's some people into their 80s and 90s who are very spry and very mentally acute. But we're talking about the presidency of the United States. That's a very tough job, a very physically demanding job. We see how presidents age dramatically when they're president. Look at Obama. You saw how fast his hair went as far as grayness. Do you ever see a picture of Abraham Lincoln, his first year versus his last year in office? He looked 20 years older. So I don't know, man, But anyway, that's just my take on it. Tell me what you guys think.